Good afternoon and welcome to Money Matters. My name is Kimon Hatza and I'm a business attorney at GrowthCounsel in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I represent life sciences and technology companies in business transactions, including mergers and acquisitions and financing transactions. I also assist them with contract matters and advise them on legal issues that arise from day-to-day operations. This afternoon, we're continuing our special series on life sciences and technology leaders in the Delaware Valley. Before we get started, I'd like to remind our viewers that from time to time, financial issues relating to life sciences or technology companies or matters may be discussed on the show. These discussions are not and should not be viewed as financial advice. Moreover, since the show is recorded and shown at one or more later times, the information may no longer be current. You should always check with your financial advisor before entering into any financial transaction. I'm happy to have with me as my co-host this afternoon, Charlie Huntington. Charlie is the head of public relations for Life Sciences PA. Life Sciences PA is the voice of advancement for the life sciences in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Charlie, thank you for co-hosting.
My pleasure, Kimon.
Charlie, we're getting into that busy time of year for Life Sciences PA, and I was wondering whether you might take a minute or two and talk to our viewers a little bit about events that are upcoming on the Life Sciences PA agenda.
Be happy to, and thanks for the opportunity, Kimon. So I'm going to highlight 5 events. As you say, it's a busy calendar. So Friday, March 15th, there's going to be a Meet the Leaders breakfast panel in Philadelphia featuring 3 all-star female life science leaders during Women's History Month. I'm really looking forward to that. On April 10th, from 5 to 7:30 p.m., it's going to be our annual dinner at the 23rd Street Armory in Philadelphia, followed by April 24th, also a Wednesday. That's going to be an open house at Life Science PA in King of Prussia at their headquarters. All are welcome to attend that. Then an event that you and I know well on Tuesday, April 30th is Advocacy Day, where we will descend upon the state capitol in Harrisburg and speak to our legislators, which we do annually, which is always a great day. And then finally, I want to highlight one of my favorites, which is Wednesday, May 22nd, is our annual tailgate. This is something that started out during COVID as a way we could be together but be outside. And there'll be 1,000 people in a tailgate style event. It's a great way to see some familiar faces and meet some new people and sort of add a new dimension to your relationship. So thanks for the opportunity, Kimon, to talk about these.
Sure thing. Those are all terrific events. And boy, everybody who's anybody, I guess, in the industry typically attends one or more of those events. So great. That's great information. Thank you, Charlie. We have a terrific guest that I'm anxious to bring out here this afternoon. But before I do, I just want to say to our viewers, if you have a question that you would like us to answer on a future show, watch this short video to see how you do it.
You can have your questions answered on Money Matters. Please go to our website, money-matterstv.com. On our homepage, click on the banner on the right that says, Send us your questions. While you're on our website, you can find information about our host and guests, as well as show notes and links about this show and past shows. Money Matters is also available as a podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, so you can listen to Money Matters while you're on the go. That website address, again, is money, MONEY, -matters, MATTERS, TV.com.
It's my great pleasure to introduce our special guest this afternoon, Deborah Moorad. Ms. Moorad is the CEO of Corrixr Therapeutics, a biotherapeutics development company focused on overcoming resistance to cancer-fighting drugs. She's also the health tech advisor at Corrixr Ventures, an early-stage venture capital firm investing in ambitious, growth-driven companies. Ms. Moorad has a proven track record of creating and implementing strategies that bridge the gap between science and the boardroom, leading global cross-functional teams, managing boards of directors, and developing trusted relationships that result in company acquisition. Most notable was her tenure as CEO of Nature Technology Corp., whose technology is used by leading pharmaceutical and biotechnology companies, including Genentech and Corrixr Therapeutics. Nature Technology was acquired by Aldevron, a Danaher company, and sold in a transaction many consider to be one of biotech's largest transactions. Ms. Moorad also led a repurposed drug from animal studies to clinical trial for use in humans against fast-growing and aggressive brain tumors. That drug was later acquired and is still being used to treat patients. She has long been committed to cultivating the next generation of leaders, and to that end, mentors companies on product development and business strategy, women interested in entrepreneurship and science, and MBA students at the University of Oklahoma. Deborah, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here today.
Deborah, how did you first, what first attracted you, I guess, to a career in the life sciences?
Yeah, so my attraction to the life science industry or the medical space happened early on. My grandfather volunteered through a chapter with Shrine Hospital for kids with special needs. And he took me with him during when I was in elementary school, actually, to volunteer with him. And so that exposed me to seeing different situations and things that families went through, things that patients went through, things that physicians and doctors handled. And I was really just bit by the bug really early with the medical career and just driven toward research.
How would you say your early experience as CEO of Nature Technology Corp., as well as your experience in repurposing that drug from animal studies, helped prepare you for your role as CEO of Corrixr?
Yeah, I often joke that nothing prepares you to be a CEO, but definitely those were two instrumental things that happened in my career that I'm thankful that happened. Repurposing, managing a repurposed drug gave me the experience and allowed me the opportunity to work hand in hand with researchers as well as the clinicians where the clinical trial would be at. So we did everything from raise money from a clinical trial, file an IND. It was a very small team. And in fact, with that, I actually met Dr. James Batiste, which is a brilliant neuro-oncologist at the University of Oklahoma Stevenson Cancer Center, which is working with us at Corrixr today. So it's interesting, that parallel. But then fold that even larger with Nature Tech. Nature Technology was a platform technology, and we worked with a lot of the individuals in the space, such as Genentech and Poseida. And that gave me a different framework looking at what happens when you already have something that's can be used on the commercial front and how that acquisition goes through and how that technology continues to move forward. And having the very early entry piece, the clinician piece, and where you want to go future really helps with Corrixr. So all of those things are hand in hand to help us move forward.
I see. What would you say is the most challenging aspect of your job as CEO of Corrixr?
Oh, goodness. Really with research, we come into work every single day and we work on something that hasn't been yet discovered yet. So we're in an unknown. So the story, the rest of the story is yet unwritten. And so we have to learn how to fail forward and continue to have our team motivated and continue to be resilient to move forward. And that can often be a challenge. And so just keeping the light of where we want to go and keeping that story being told of what that end result is what keeps us going. And, we live in a society where everyone wants to just see success and answer, and there's no failure. But research is quite the opposite. So we're working every day on this to move forward, and some days are better than others. But the goal here is to keep that continuing to move forward to our end goal. And that can often be a struggle, but we power through it.
Hi, Deborah.
Hello.
Tell us about Corrixr Therapeutics, please.
Oh, goodness. So Corrixr Therapeutics is a gene editing system, and we're looking at resistance factors. And when we're talking about resistance, a lot of times what happens when you treat a patient is that our body gets used to that treatment, or our body's not accepting the patient, like basically the treatment. And so in this case, Corrixr has developed a system that works on this resistance so we can actively treat the patient. And our first route out, or our first indication, is oncology.
Okay, why is Corrixr in this business?
So Corrixr Therapeutics was developed at ChristianaCare in the Cancer Center, and it was really developed to create a solution. Because as we know, there's not a solution for cancer. And Dr. Eric Kamek and team, Dr. Petrelli, all the nurse navigators, everyone that was working there, they were seeking an answer of, it's not only the patients that are looking for an answer, it's also the physicians and the staff, because having a patient come in and not having a solution and wanting to give them proper treatment can also be very exhausting. And so Corrixr came out for that way. And Corrixr actually comes from the Galatian meaning to correct. And so this is providing a solution or an answer to something there's not an answer for currently.
So cancer's a broad topic. What are the company's areas of focus right now?
So current areas of focus for us are leg, head, and neck. And we're also have the addition of glioblastoma. It's hard with this one. We actually went to the FDA for a pre-interact meeting, and the initial focus we had was lung cancer, although we were looking at all these other targets. And the FDA came back in that meeting and recommended and suggested a basket trial. And so having that expertise from ChristianaCare and the Cancer Center, as well as, a brilliant researcher with Dr. Kamek, we were able to come back and say, based on our lab studies, we also have other indications, the head, neck, and as well as the glioma, that we can put in this basket trial and move forward.
Thank you. Does the company have proprietary intellectual property?
Yes, for all the indications that we are working with, Corrixr does have IP, and we are always looking to expand that IP for other items that we are working on. So it is something that's continuously expanding. Our portfolio is very intense, but yes, we do have intellectual property.
So we touched on does commercialization of Corrixr's IP require FDA approval? Do you want to expand upon that a little bit?
Yes, we do need to go to the FDA and require FDA approval for this. So part of the process with Corrixr will be to go back to the FDA. We'll have a pre-IND meeting. And once that is approved, we'll be able to take this to clinical trial. Our projected timeline for that would be to start clinical trial the beginning of next year, 2025.
Deborah, how is Corrixr financed currently, and what are your plans for growing the company going forward?
Yes, as mentioned previously, we are very thankful to be started out of ChristianaCare and spun out from that system. We're very thankful for Jennifer Swartz, as well as Janice Nevin. They were very critical and key in working with Eric and team to bring this as far as they could along before they had to create a separate company to have this move forward and to commercialize. And so we have received, of course, it was developed in a hospital system to some pre-seed funding, but now there will be additional funding to take this to clinical trial. And then as this moves forward to commercialization, you'll see bigger players come and take basically ownership or interest in Corrixr as a strategic relationship, so we can further develop this and commercialize this into an actual product that would be treating patients versus just a clinical trial.
I see. Are there competitive products that are currently in use by physicians in hospital or healthcare system settings?
Yes. So there's a lot of standard of care treatments for oncology right now. However, in terms of the way that Corrixr is looking at oncology, there's very few, if anyone, in this space. So there's not necessarily competition that way. A lot of people, there's definitely some CAR T therapies, but what Corrixr is doing is actually very unique. So we're like a first-in-class clinical trial. So right now our goal is to stay 2 steps ahead of everyone and continue moving this forward. I'm assuming once this goes through on clinical trial, we'll have a lot of people following in our footsteps on this one. But right now we're really going to be some of the first ones embarking in this journey, and that's what makes it so exciting.
All right. So continuing on that thought, then, if your ongoing studies and subsequent trials are successful, then Corrixr's technology and effectiveness, comparing it to the other technologies that are available, you had said there's basically nothing else really doing exactly that right now. So it's likely to be just people, following your lead kind of and trying to come up with similar sorts of technologies at that point.
Yes. So, a lot of things, especially in the oncology space, is that when we treat a patient, we're just throwing everything at it, right? And even if there's something that is working or giving some hope to expand some of that life, you just continuously have to keep getting treated by that. That's where this resistance comes from. And you're continuing to throw things at, the problem, whatever that problem may lie, whether it be glioblastoma, lung, this, of course, system can be used beyond oncology. But what makes this so special is this is really going at the root cause. This is actually going after the DNA of the cancer. And so if we can figure out, in which what our scientists have proven is these genes that are basically making it where the standard of care doesn't work, if we can essentially turn that off, we can treat the patient without just continuously bombarding them with drugs and medicines. So this would be a long-term effective treatment. So yes, this completely knocks it out of the park from what's currently out there.
Wow. What would you say are the biggest barriers to entry into your industry or industries of focus?
Oh, goodness. So there's always something that comes up. Probably the thing that most of us always speak about is the financial piece. If you don't have enough finances, you can't move something forward to clinical trial. It definitely, you have to be able to keep those lights on, right? I'm a little opposite, when it comes to those things. I mean, yes, we do need funding to go to clinical trial, but a lot of times the biggest barrier for us getting things to the clinic or to the patient are basically ourselves. And, I mentioned, in our question earlier about, what's the hardest thing with Corrixr Therapeutics? It truly is. You're doing something every day that story is not written yet, right? And we have to write this story. And that can be very hard. When you think about a startup and your pitfalls and everything you go through, certain days you wake up and at 10 a.m., you feel like you're king of the world. And then at 5 p.m., you feel like you're sinking at the bottom of the ocean with a Titanic. So really, sometimes that biggest barrier to entry is ourself. And if we can keep that momentum and the speed and our team motivated, then all the rest of those factors that are really those barriers to industry that we learn about in our business programs, those fade away a little bit.
What would you say, what would success look like for Corrixr?
Wow. So having our patients in the very end game, I mean, if we go to the very end of a product treating patients, it's giving our physicians hope where when they treat their patients, they have an answer for them, for the patients to have hope for something that is just, there's no answer for, right? Working on the oncology space, we always talk about the patient a lot. And we don't really talk about the physicians or the staff. But, when you have those phone calls and you hear all those people that or friends that you have that know someone that's suffering from this disease and suffering from, whether it be brain cancer or another indication, such as lung cancer, knowing you have an answer for that is really rewarding. But I also think the success comes a lot sooner than that. I know that Christiana Care, the Gene Editing Institute, my friends here in Oklahoma, and the Corrixr team, I know when we go to a clinical trial, there's going to be a lot of rejoice in that. So it's a huge inflection point for us to treat a patient. So that's our goal.
Deborah, many of the CEOs that we have on the show, they're dealing with startups, and their intellectual property has come out of either universities or healthcare systems or pharma or other life science companies. Can you sort of describe the process that was necessary for Corrixr?
Yeah, this is really a great story. And I talked to Janice Nevin and Jennifer Schwartz about this quite a bit. It's really hard sometimes to find technology and license things out of a university, and not because of the university, it's just hidden in that system, right? Unless you know someone. But Christiana Care did an amazing job to prop up basically a system where it's generating technology to create a startup such as Corrixr. And that's how this came about. So the technology, the intellectual property was licensed out from Christiana Care, and here we are today. But it was done so not just in the typical sense of how you typically would go to a university or a research foundation and find that technology and ask them to in-license. This was truly, from the core of this, an initiative to move forward and make a difference in the healthcare space from the get-go.
Deborah, your career has taken you to different parts of the country, and I was wondering if you could tell our viewers how the Delaware Valley compares to other parts of the country in terms of the life sciences ecosystem, I guess.
Yeah, so I am actually really excited about being in the Delaware Valley and working with a team in Delaware and with a company, because early when I started out career-wise, and I'm not for sure if you heard this story prior to our interview today, but I'm friends with Chris Yoakum, which is retired AstraZeneca. He's a Delaware native. And a lot of my early beginnings in the healthcare space were because of people in the Delaware area that extended their kindness and gave me tips in my career early on. And so it was really rewarding, coming back. Actually, the introduction to Corrixr was made by Chris Yoakum, and coming back full circle to this relationship with Delaware. But looking at the Delaware, Pennsylvania, Philly area and everything that's going on right now, there's a huge momentum and push. The gene editing, CAR-T, CRISPR space, all the knowledge over the years. I mean, this is probably one of the top places, if not the top place in the US right now, that has the breadth of knowledge that this core area does. So, you can't compare. Each company has a little bit like apples to oranges. They're not exactly the same. But for what Corrixr is doing in this space, to have so many people with that longevity and resources there available to help us connect together to move something forward is quite impressive.
What advice do you have for folks who are considering starting a life sciences company based on technology with which they have some familiarity?
I would tell that person, if you're interested in this space, to go out and just meet individuals like myself. I mean, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to answer any questions. Just reach out to individuals, attend meetings, and find out what it's all about. And you never have enough knowledge. You'll never have enough to start out in this space, but you have to start somewhere. And so once you get a little bit backing behind you, explore all the potential options and move forward with it. It's definitely unlike anything you'll ever experience. There's a lot of excitement. You truly get to see making a difference. And I'd be happy to answer any questions there, but definitely just reach out and have those connections, because they'll help you through the way. They mean so much.
Well, we have a couple of minutes left yet, and I thought I might take the opportunity to ask you a couple of personal questions. Your interests extend beyond the life sciences, and we understand that you're the founder of Malibu Oki, which is a customized apparel company designed for individuals that have a love for adventure. How did that come about?
So actually, Malibu Okie came about because when I was in elementary school, I actually sold my brother's artwork to our neighbors. I think I was, wanting some candy or something to that sort. And I have a love for cars. And so I wanted to open a car wash. And my brother would make all these little handwritten notes. And he's like, you should just go ahead and coin a name for your car wash and get things started. And he's like, you should just start selling some t-shirts and just create an apparel company right now. And so it kind of took off. I run an apparel company. I use the University of Oklahoma MBA students to lead that. But I also do a lot of cross initiatives with it, which is encouraging people to find their love for science. If you go and look at the Malibu Okie Instagram page, you'll see a lot of handwritten instruments that are basically referring back to science that quote like my DNA or it's in your DNA. And I'm really using this as a tool to teach entrepreneurship and science. Eric at Corrixr, my chief scientific officer, gives me a hard time all the time because he's still waiting for a sweatshirt. And I promise you, Eric, that is coming to you. But it's just a way for me to, my day-to-day is pretty intense and rough. And Malibu Okie just gives me an opportunity to connect with people, also pave that next generation of entrepreneurs and share a little bit more about myself.
Wow. Okay. I was wondering also, because this just fascinated me, but I was wondering if you could tell our viewers about how you challenge yourself outside of work. Maybe tell them what an ultra runner is, and then how it is that you challenge yourself out of work. We have about 2 minutes left.
2 minutes, so. Yeah. So, ultra running is anything over 26 miles, and I'll tell you, I actually was never going to be a marathon runner. I was never going to run long distances. But going through COVID and being a CEO of Nature Technology pressed me to a whole different level. And so it just allows me a time to have a moment to myself and have a personal goal outside the pressures that are on me at work. And I love it. I mean, there's something about waking up in the morning before everyone else is awake and watching the sunrise. Like everything is just still and you can be with your thoughts. So also, if anyone would like to join me running, I'd be happy in any time to have a few people run along with me and enjoy that sunrise.
Okay. Well, I think that's about all the time we have. Deborah, thank you so much for being our guest today. We'd love to have you back again sometime. Charlie, thank you for co-hosting. You're terrific as always. The next guest on Money Matters is Nick Izzy, CPA from Cannon Capital. Thank you all for watching this afternoon, and we will see you again next time.